Hello and welcome to Plugged In. Are you at risk? Well, today, Ken Shahal shares his journey from kidney patient to kidney transplant recipient. And meet his daughter, Julie. She's his living kidney donor. And they sit down with us to share their inspirational story to help raise awareness about kidney disease and the need for increased organ donation registration in the South Asian community. They're coming up next, right here on Plugged In. So today we're here at AdExperts in Surrey, and you're going to hear a little bit more about that later in the show. But right now, I have a great treat because I'm going to meet the owner of AdExperts, Ken Shahal, who happens to also be a kidney transplant recipient. I'm going to talk to him about his story. It's a really interesting one, so stay with us. We'll be right back with Ken. Ken, thank you so much for joining us today on Plugged In.
Thank you for having me here.
You received a kidney from a living donor who happened to be your daughter.
That's correct, yes.
And I think that was in 2013, is that correct?
October 2013.
Wow, so that must have been a life-changing day for you.
It was the beginning. It was the beginning of a life-changing experience.
And we're going to have the pleasure of actually meeting Julie, your daughter, later in the show. And if you can take me back to the beginning about your journey with kidney disease.
Well, the first time I was officially diagnosed that there was a problem with the kidney function or just my blood sugars, it happened, I think, around 2009, 2008, in that range. And I went to get my A1C done, and then the doctor called me and he says my A1C level was very high and that I had to take some action immediately. My kidney function had gone down significantly, and as a result, I took more medicine. I started changing my lifestyle, started walking more, eating more healthier, and getting myself fit. Always thinking that now I'm taking the right steps to fix my kidney. However, at that time, I didn't realize that there was really no fix. Once the kidney itself is damaged, the filtration system, once it has holes gone through it, it's not repairable.
But if I can just take you back a little bit, you had mentioned about your AC1 levels. Now that's because you had diabetes.
Yes, I had type 2 diabetes, that was diagnosed in the early 90s. And at that time, I had something happen in my family. I had a younger brother who was involved in a car accident, and that left quite the impression or trauma on me too. He was a younger brother. I raised him, and he was killed in a car accident in 1993. And so at that time, I was asked to go see the doctor by my family, and I did. And at that time, they made me go through all the tests and so on to check. I guess they give you a bunch of sugar to drink, and you sit there for 3 or 4 hours, and they realized that there was some problem with my pancreas that was not producing enough, I think it's called insulin.
You were then diagnosed with diabetes, prior to kidney disease.
Yes.
Right.
And then in 2008, even then it was mentioned that the kidney function had gone down significantly, but not officially declared that I had kidney disease.
Okay. Another thing that many people are not aware of is the correlation between diabetes and kidney disease. If you have diabetes, you are at high risk of kidney disease. I think it's one of the major risk factors as you learned along the way, right?
And blood pressure also, I think, is connected to high blood pressure is connected to type 2 diabetes also. Hypertension. And all of those play a role in making holes in the kidney walls. So my nephrologist, he told me at that time that physically, everything else seems just fine with you. You look healthy. Your blood tests are all fine all around, but your kidney is your weak link.
So you were the picture of health, but yet
Yeah,
the kidney.
And he said the kidney is what's going to kill you. That was his words.
Now those must have been difficult words to hear. Did that set off alarm bells for you? I mean,
Not so much for me. At that time, I still wouldn't accept it. I told my daughter, who's a nurse, and she in fact teaches nursing, I mentioned that to her, and she also takes her students into VGH, the kidney, where the kidney transplants happen.
How did you feel then? That must have been a difficult moment to hear that from your daughter.
Yeah, it's difficult, but it's, you know, I was still adamant that this is, I'm going to slow this down.
Yeah,
it didn't matter at that time. It didn't matter. I just continued on, and I would say the word is more disappointed. Inside, I would never say this to anybody. So it continued to decline over time, dropping down to 26, then 24, then 22, and then we started talking about now what are we going to do here? And so at that time, talking about dialysis, the discussion happened, dialysis, transplant, you have to go on dialysis to get on to the transplant list.
Right.
At that time.
So at this point, you were speaking with your nephrologist about your treatment options.
Well, he was
right?
he was talking to me about it. He was
Good.
telling me this is what you're
Good
up.
point.
Yeah, he was telling me this is what you're up against, and so I looked at options, and including options of getting transplant overseas. We looked into that and looked into the danger of that, ultimately, my daughter Sabrina, she went and discussed this with the rest of the family, that this is what is happening to our dad, and they all got together and they discussed about transplant, and what I was going to do was I'm going to fly overseas, and they knew that I would probably, if I made up my mind, I was going to do that without any notification. Sabrina, she got herself checked to see if she would be a match. My eldest daughter, Julie, and Rupi, the youngest, she's not the youngest, but younger than Julie, and my sisters, they got checked also. And at that time, it was Julie that she basically had really somewhat, I guess, adamant to it. She wanted to give the kidney. And so she maintained contact with VGH Hospital, and the time followed that they said that she was a match.
And you're in for a real treat now, because joining us is Julie Shahal, Ken's daughter, and she is, well, we call it the Kidney Foundation, a kidney hero. She's a living donor, living kidney donor to her dad. Julie, thank you so much for joining us here on Plugged In.
Thank you very much for having me.
So you donated a kidney to your dad, let's see, it was, I think, October 2013?
2013, yeah.
Wow. So when do you recall was the first time you even heard that your dad was had kidney disease?
Yeah, so I actually didn't realize that my dad was having any complications with his kidney up until a year prior to the actual surgery, and that's when I guess he had gone to the doctor and got the news, and my sister was the one that actually called me. She's a nurse, and she let me know that he needed to get a transplant, and at that time I didn't know anything about, transplants and or even kidney disease, so I didn't even know he had any issues. So I do remember calling my parents after and saying, like, what's going on? And asking them about, what exactly had happened to his kidney and how long this was going on. So it sounds like it progressed quite quickly during that time.
So you got all that information over the phone. So where were you living? You weren't here in BC. Where were you?
Yeah, so I just recently moved back to BC. So I was living in, at that time, 2 years we were living in Manitoba, in Winnipeg. So I was a few provinces away. So that was a bit emotional as well, because I felt like I was quite close to my dad. And I still was as I moved away, and it was hard for me not to be close to him physically when we were going through all of this. I was told at that time that I could start getting some blood tests done, and I was glad I could do it there. So that made me feel better, but it took me a couple days, and I went straight to that weekend and got some blood tests done. But it was hard being so far away.
An extraordinary thing that you said to me was that actually you were married and your husband, both of you decided to get tested to be living donors.
Yes, my husband's and my father and my husband's relationship is very close as well. And he went with me to the blood clinic to get our testing done, and he didn't felt like it was a support, but he truly did want to be a match, and was letting my dad know, updating him through the text where we were at.
So you got the blood test taken, and then when did you receive notification that you could move on with the process?
Yeah, I think it was within a few weeks.
There's many levels of testing that you undergo to become a living kidney donor.
Yeah, so I had, I think the first step was I had some more blood work to get done, and that was quite extensive, and my husband at that point was not a blood match, so he didn't go any further.
Okay.
And I know they could have approved several people, and then the decision would have been within our family to decide who would do it, but so he wasn't a match at that point, and I was, so I continued on from the blood test. They, checking from a health aspect, how well you are, and then there was quite a few more tests, some interviews, meeting the doctors, I flew down from Manitoba a couple of times, and also met with I think a counselor or social worker to determine whether, I guess mentally, it was why I was doing it, and truly to make sure that there was no pressure in regards to being forced to give a kidney, and whether I felt pressure to do that, if I was doing it on my own, and also whether I had discussed it, both with my husband and how I mentally felt about it. And
what they say is that it's probably the best physical you can get in your life. It's so extensive because they look into anything, not just your past history, but your potentially future medical history too. They're so concerned about the health of the living donor as well as the recipient who's
absolutely.
Going to get.
It was after getting through all the physical and the blood work and everything that they checked for, I did feel like I had a really clean bill of health coming out of all that testing, because truly I wouldn't have been able to move on to the next stage of meeting the doctors unless that was all in place first.
At some point, were you concerned ever about your personal health in all of this, post-surgery or during surgery?
Yeah, I think because I was consumed with the fact I was worried about my dad. I don't really think I thought about myself up until it was the night before the surgery, and that's when I really felt it. I think maybe a couple of days before the surgery when it started to hit me that I was going to be going through major surgery, and then my research started going from, looking after what was going to happen to him to all of a sudden, what are the chances of something complications for myself. So, and then I actually felt guilty about doing that because I felt like it wasn't about me, it was about him. And I actually felt guilty about doing that, so I did that on my own.
How about your husband? Was he apprehensive at any point?
No, he was fully supportive right through the process, and I think we did have some conversations about what could happen and going through the surgery, and I think he was just as joyful and glad in regards to that clean bill of health to know when I got that, felt really good and confident, and said do what you have to do for your dad, and he, like I said, he wanted to donate himself, so it was I'm really glad that I had that because it's an emotional process for you to go through to try to figure everything out anyways.
Well, it sounds like he was your biggest cheerleader along the way.
Yes.
So take us to that day. You checked into the hospital. How many days were it? VGH or
yes.
St. Paul's? Okay, VGH.
So my dad had checked in the day before the surgery, and he was there all day. And for myself, I needed to go in the day before, but they allowed me to either go back home. We actually opted to stay at a hotel that night in Vancouver, just near VGH, because I had to be back the day of the surgery quite early.
Yeah.
So my husband, myself, and my mom all stayed at the hotel close to VGH that night.
And you're on the gurney. You're getting wheeled in. Last thoughts that were running through your head? Do you recall anything like that?
Yeah, actually it was. Thinking about my dad, I think I was thinking about myself and just thinking about what's going to be happening. But I do remember at the hospital, all the nurses, people were coming up to me and meeting me and talking to me, and essentially really delighted to say, you know, I want to come over and meet you, and I didn't quite understand why until after the fact, and it was because of, so then they started explaining to me, you're giving up your, you know, an organ, and we wanted to come by and say hi. So it was a very supportive environment.
So recovery room, you wake up.
I was looking for my dad in the recovery room, not realizing that he would have been in a different recovery room himself. But you know, when I came to, that's what I was looking for, and I was trying to find out if I could get an update on you know, how long his where along in the process was he in the surgery. So he was in surgery at that time when I was in the recovery room when I'd come to. So I was watching the clock. The doctor came up to my room. My whole family was sitting in my room because my father was still in recovery, and to let us know that we know you're probably wanting to know, but he's doing good. So that was a sigh of relief. And then in the middle of the night, everybody was sleeping. I heard my dad call my name. I had a hard time sleeping, but in the middle of the night, you know, all the lights were off, and he just called my name out very faintly, and I burst into tears. And he just goes, "I'm okay," and that was enough just to let me rest that night.
The first time you saw your dad, the two of you saw each other?
It wasn't until the next day, yeah. The next morning, the doctors and the nurses had come in. They wanted me to get up and walk around if I could. So my husband had helped me kind of brush my hair and got ready. And when I was able to do that, I got to walk over to his room. Yeah, and so we have a picture of us, the four of us, my mom, my dad, and my husband and myself when I first seen him.
Since the surgery, it's now, what, 5 year? Actually, in October will be 5-year
Yes.
anniversary, right?
Yes.
That's a big milestone. How are you feeling? What's life been like since, you know, post-transplant? You've moved back, is that right?
Yeah, we just recently moved back, but I do remember after the surgery took place, it was like instant, waking up from the surgery, I do remember booking a vacation within, you know, a few weeks of kind of coming to as I started to feel better. And me and my husband went on vacation that year. You know, I think we had gone to Paris, but it was a new, you know, look on life and outlook on life. So ever since then, we've been traveling quite a lot, and prior to that, we hadn't. So it really changed my perspective. Take that time to look after yourself, because without that, it's a tough journey to go through.
Speaking to anybody out there that might be considering being a living donor based on your own personal experience, what would you say?
I would tell you that if I had to do it again, I would do it again. You know, with all the emotions that may happen, like I said, I was consumed with wanting to make sure he was okay, and there was something I could do about it. And you know, you go through emotional, physical, all of that. Said that going through the surgery, I would definitely do it again. And you know, I feel good. Like you only need one kidney to live. So.
It's really good news story on both your sides, and post-recovery, that really plays into it, your health, right?
Yeah, I mean, I started walking right away that morning, around and around, and until the doctor actually had to stop me. They said, "There's too much."
Oh.
I was in, you know, physically, my, you know, physical health was good. Just there was a kidney malfunction. The rest was working
Right.
very well, and so.
So they had to hold you back.
They actually did. They asked me to cool it, and then I was actually, I think, discharged. Was it four days, or the fourth day or fifth day?
I don't remember.
I believe it was very early. I didn't stay there very long.
What's the change in your dad that you've seen since the transplant?
Yeah, I think about even when I was a child and growing up. I think he's in better health than I've seen him probably in the past, even prior to the kidney transplant, and him needing to have that transplant. So he's, you know, we talk about that outlook on life, but he's energized to accomplish something every single day. So he's kept himself quite busy.
Many people hesitate because they worry about what their health will be like post-transplant, right, to be a living donor. And perfect example that actually you're both leading perfectly, wonderfully healthy lives post-transplant.
Yeah.
And as your daughter says, maybe even it's the new you, even better than before.
No, I don't think it's maybe, it is.
It is?
It is a matter of fact, but it doesn't just happen. It just doesn't happen that every person that gets a transplant becomes and put themselves in optimal level. It takes effort, it takes responsibility, it takes, you know, recognizing that we have to be responsible for our health, that we can't take it for granted, as I have done in the past. And so that is a step. So that's, I guess, one of the first steps is taking responsibility for our well-being, and that's what I'm doing right now.
What's the future hold?
I don't think too far into the future. I think very much in what we're doing right now, and that is very, very important to me. And my outlook in life is about the today, is about our present moment. And I move my body and my mind and who I am moves through this moment. And the future, it is not for me to even think about. Because I will, if my moments are well looked after, then I will tell you definitely the future is bright. My doctor, he said to me during a very difficult time when I had an infection, and he says, how are you going to cope with this? And I said to him, and it will pass, and it will pass, and we will get through this. And I guess that's what it is. So bad things happen in life, or suffering happens and pain happens in life, but it passes. It passes and it moves on. If suffering can happen, I think happiness and goodness and greatness can happen just as well.
Words to live by. One of the things about the South Asian community is that it's a high risk. It's one of Asian, South Asian, First Nations, African are at higher risk of kidney disease. The organ donation rates are lower in the South Asian communities as well, because it's perhaps a cultural influence or something that's coming to the forefront now over the years. Do you have a few words for anybody out there as well that might want to consider being a living donor?
I think there's a stigma of that we take a body part and from one. Sometimes people say, well, if somebody passes away in our family naturally or through an accident or something, already we're in so much pain, then at the same time you're going to take a body part and give it to somebody else. These are cultural things that have the cultural thinking that's been going on for such a long time, and it's changing, and I think the situations like what we're sharing today. So I really believe in education. I believe in sharing and getting the word out there that it's not something that's going to, evil forces are not going to come upon us if we give our body part to donate. It's actually the opposite. Goodness happens. People, life is maintained, or you give a life to another individual, or a quality of life to another individual. And I think it is something I think we just need to have more awareness and more education. This is not a one-person problem that has a kidney problem or a heart problem or eye problem, that this is a community problem that we should be a part of this community problem to solve.
Yeah, to help raise awareness. And I thought your daughter Julie said it so well. I mean, in 4 short words, you said, "I'd do it again."
Yes.
Right. Well, thank you both for joining us on Plugged In. To say it's been a pleasure is really understatement. It's been a real treat, real honor to speak with you both. Thank you so much. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, come on in.
Oh, this is great, Ken. Wow, this is where all the magic happens, I see.
Yeah, this is where we're doing all the printing. This is actually our printing department of our business. And this is where actually we're going to be printing the banners for this year's Kidney Walk.
Yeah, this is a great partnership, Ken, and we are so excited to be part of Ad Experts and to create this partnership for you to actually supply all the banners right across BC to all of our 16 walks. Not only the banners, but also the teardrop flags, which will just bring the kidney walks right up to the next level, and we're really excited about that.
Well, we're very happy to support the Kidney Foundation, and this year as well as past years. And so, we want to also assist with whatever we can do in terms of creating more awareness for kidney disease and kidney wellness.
That's great, Ken. Tell me about Ad Experts. What else do you do? I know you do banners and teardrop flags. That's what you're providing to us. What else do you do?
Well, we've been around for a long time, and we've done many things in the past and many things we do today. We do banners, like we said, like we're doing for you, and the teardrops flags. We do illuminated signs. We do channel letters, which are the 3D illuminated custom letters. We do custom inflatables that are life-size. We do also air dancers to bring exposure, advertising exposure to businesses and so on. And so yeah, we're very, very, very proud to be a sponsor of the Kidney Foundation of Canada and British Columbia.
Yes, absolutely, and we are very grateful for everything. Going back to the banners, I see that we are starting one. I guess, show me how it works.
I just put this on pause for a moment, so let me just continue on. And this is actually printing 2 banners at a time. And we'll be doing a total of 48 of these for the Kidney Foundation. And after this is printed in a few minutes, it'll be left to dry. It'll get cut to size. And once it gets cut to size, it basically will be taken upstairs and hemmed, and then grommets put on there. So, and then shipped off to you.
Yay! Yeah, that's great. That's wonderful. Well, again, Ken, thank you so much for your support. I know you've been supporting the Kidney Walks for many years now, and we continue to be grateful for your ongoing support. So again, thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you.
Well, today we're here at Ad Experts in Surrey for a really great interview. Well, I'm not going to say a great interview.
Okay, let me take a deep breath. Okay.
How long have you been here in Surrey? How long have you been operating?
Close to
Ad
20
Experts?
years,
20 years, wow, that's
20
great.
years, yeah, we've been operating,
Good. And I just kind of laugh a little bit together and,
We don't always laugh.
or smile.